Hey guys, welcome to the Property Panel Podcast. You got myself, Jalen Hardcastle, here with co-host Josh Story, and today we're going to go over the strategies to a successful sale.
Before we get into that, though, I want to go ahead and thank our title sponsors for today's episode. So big shout out to Collier Title Company. If you need deed prep, title work, and much more, they're located in E-Town, Brandenburg, and Louisville, and you can call them at 270-763-6589. And then I want to give a big shout out to Supreme Lending. Chad Gooden and Garrett Greenwell, they're two great lenders over there, and you can give them a call if you have any questions over FHA loans, VA loans, conventional loans, and much more. And they're located off of North Mulberry Street in E-Town. And then for this week's sponsor, and actually the sponsor for the month, is Taylor Inspection Services.
Whoop, whoop.
And if you need residential, commercial, termite, and chimney inspections, as well as mold sampling and more, you can give them a call at 270-723-6530 or visit them online at taylorinspectionservicesllc.com.
Yeah, guys, and we want to thank Taylor especially because they're our first full month sponsorship. Everyone's been doing weekly, and he's like, hey, why don't we save a week and get 3 for $4? So they paid for 3 weeks and got 4 weeks free. So we like that. We appreciate you. And if you or anyone you know would like to sponsor the podcast, you can give us a call at the phone numbers behind us, send us an email or a DM us on Facebook as well. And that's 100 weekly, 300 monthly, and 3,000 yearly. And I think around June we're going to reevaluate and up that charge a little bit as we begin to progress. So go ahead, get while the getting's good. But right now we're cumulatively on 4 or 5 different platforms, reaching about 2,000 to 3,000 views a week. So I think it's pretty good, return on investment, and we can also get you an invoice. So you can write those off on your taxes as well.
Yep. So we're on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Apple Podcasts, and on all those platforms. If you just search Property Panel Podcast, you can find us. Please like, subscribe, and follow. It definitely
costs you
us.
Nothing.
It's a free way to support the podcast.
Do it now.
And it really helps us grow, and we definitely appreciate it. So if you don't mind, on all those platforms, go like and follow. And go ahead and hit that bell so you can be notified on any of our new posts and our new podcasts.
And today I think we want to introduce our newest addition to the member property panel is Ethan McCormick. We want to thank him for coming on, and he's our producer, so he's going to be doing a lot of work behind the scenes, but he's going to play a huge role in what happens here at the podcast.
And Ethan, he's not only a member here now at the property panel, but he's a member of the Cedar Hill Properties team. He's a great realtor here, so if you guys need somebody to talk to as far as realtor services, give him a call. But Ethan, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started in real estate, and maybe what your goals are for 2024.
Well, thank you guys for having me on here, having me start as a producer. I'm glad to take that workload off. As for starting out in real estate, I started less than 2 years ago. We're about to reach that 2-year mark in the summer. It's been a rocky start, but progressively increasing that clientele and the outreach I'm getting. So I can't complain there. My goals for 2024, as for that aspect, I'm looking to get over 2 million in volume the last 2 years. That's what I've been shooting for, but haven't quite reached that yet. So I'm hoping to go above and beyond that volume range.
Yeah, and we definitely appreciate you coming on and helping us out, which you guys may not know, but, this podcast does take a lot of time to get ready and set up. And on the producer side especially, making sure all the transitions are done correctly, especially when we go on to the screen share and we're trying to show you our inspection list and stuff. So we definitely appreciate you, Ethan, and we appreciate your hard work, and we are looking forward to seeing you grow here.
And a lot of people don't realize that we run a tight-knit ship here, and we like to keep it in the family. Ethan is blood. He is my brother, and I'm glad to see him following in the footsteps and appreciating what we do here, and then wanting to try it for himself. He definitely started out well, and to start young, he's hustling, and that's what we look for here. And Josh is the same. He's not blood, but he is family. He's closer than some of my blood relatives, and I appreciate having him on. And we just like to do things at the best productivity we can, and for us to work together, I think we execute that to perfection.
Yeah, and I think we got a great team here, and Ethan's no exception. He's great with us, and We hope to keep working with them. And, just recently I've been on a few deals with Ethan, and, he's definitely exceeded expectations, and I'm really happy with the fact that I got to partner with him, and I'm looking forward to more of those partnerships. But
I'm kind of jealous. He's my own brother, and I ain't partnered with him yet. So I'm excited to get one of those in the works.
And you'll be happy with it. He does a great job. But to get into today's topic, we're going to be going over strategies to successful sale. And as a seller, there's a lot of different pieces to the process, and making sure you have all those pieces together is important to have the best outcome on your sale. And one of those biggest portions of that process is the home inspection, which Jalen, I don't know if you could dive into it, but what are the parts of the home inspection that are important? What is a home inspection? Can you just give us a little bit of info on that?
Yeah, so I think we're actually going to pull up one of our home inspections that we have. Ethan, if you want to transfer us over, tell me when we're ready. We're good. Awesome. See, that's one of the many things that Ethan does for us, is gets us ready for you guys whenever we're going to give you something important on here. But as you can see, like Josh mentioned, the home inspections, they can be kind of lengthy. Obviously, this is a whole house, so you would think there'd be more than 100 things on there. But when people see 100 things on the home inspection report, they're like, holy cow. But they're really putting on stuff that the homeowner needs as preventative maintenance, and then also stuff that you might need to look forward to repair soon, as well as detrimental things to the house currently.
Yeah, these home inspections, they can be kind of scary, especially when, they're very lengthy, whether they're 50 pages or 150 pages. It's really showcasing all the different issues with the home. And this is kind of why we're getting into it as far as the selling side, but we definitely recommend a pre-list inspection, and it will look something like this, but ultimately what it's going to do is kind of set an ease of mind for yourself, so that way what to expect when a buyer comes along and gets their own home inspection.
Right, and you can use those as leverage. And then, even stuff as small as like we see here, these limbs hanging over the home, that could be detrimental whenever a buyer goes to get a insurance quote. We actually just recently, Josh, went through one of these where the home wouldn't qualify for insurance unless these trees were cut down. So, and a lot of times you might be able to negotiate with the seller to get those cut to get that home sold efficiently, but this particular buyer needed to get in a home quick, so he decided to pay for it himself to get in that home, which was also priced correctly, and a good asset to his investments.
And it's just another shout out to Taylor Inspections, but
we're not just looking at his inspection because he's our sponsor.
No,
we're looking at that because
he was actually,
we use him.
We were actually planning on looking at this inspection before he even sponsored, but luckily he did sponsor, which kind of goes hand in hand with what we were going to showcase today. But either way, all these home inspectors, they're gonna put in their effort to make a report kind of like this and break down all the aspects of the home, whether it's the roof, the interior, the exterior, or the foundation, electrical issues, HVAC issues. They're going to go into all of it.
And as you can see here, I mean, even as far as like leaves in the gutters, like, yes, we know that it's going to cause an issue, but obviously with them being at the downspout and then clogged right here, it's going to leak from the gutter straight onto your foundation, as well as right here, it's going to get bunched up and just leak onto your foundation, causing cracks, settlement, and other things like that we want to prevent for future maintenance. And then obviously you can see he literally inspects from the roof to the crawl space or basement, whatever it is sitting on, but he's going to go as far as the boots where it shows some deteriorated, boot action right here on the vent. And then he goes into the chimney, shows the creosote buildup, which is common, but he wants to show that over time this can cause buildup and create issues over time.
Right. And one thing I like about his inspections, but most home inspectors, but they're going to show you a recommendation on what you should do about these issues. Yep. A lot of times it's going to be consulting a professional in that area. If it's an electrical issue, they're going to ask that you check with an electrician, a licensed electrician, and see if these issues are something to be concerned about. And he labels these, which you may have went into, but you see blue and orange, and some are red. Red being something that might concern safety. And typically these are electrical issues that we see, but with electrical issues, even though they are concerning, they're really simple fixes. Aside from just hiring that licensed electrician, they're typically pretty easy. They're pretty easy issues to cover.
No, I agree. And then right here we actually have a good representation where we have 6 different points that he's put on this home inspection, but we got one that's red, 4 that are orange, and then one that's blue. So obviously with your plumbing, you're going to have some leaks here and there, and then obviously he's showing that these pipes have corroded, and there's been previous leaks. They might have been fixed, but this is something that you want to look after as a homeowner to make sure this doesn't cause further maintenance to be done to the property. And then right here you got like a discharge pipe and then stuff like this. As you had mentioned earlier, a lot of your main things are going to be electrical, as you can see right here. This is some wires that are exposed, especially on top of the water heater. That's definitely not something that you want to buy or have whenever you're buying a new home.
Yeah, and which these issues kind of wrote back around to.
Look at that toilet. I'm
yeah.
sorry,
Holy
but look
shit.
at that.
What
It's
is
definitely
that?
inoperable.
I've never seen a toilet like
I've
that.
never either. Did that come from a jail cell? Ethan, can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, goodness
Shaped
gracious.
shaped like a star.
Well, I'm buying this home from an elderly lady, so having a bigger seat like that, I guess, helps the mobility and such. I can't speak too much on it from personal experience, but that's what I've inferred.
That's quite funny. But as you can see, this is Ethan's home inspection. And he's actually, we're going to have him on in about a month or two after he moves into this home. And we're going to show what it's like to kind of flip your first home. So we appreciate Ethan giving us a little bit of future insight on that. And there's more to come on that particular inspection. You're going to see what, I think we'll actually bring up that inspection and also the pictures you've taken. But we're going to show what he's transformed that house into and also what value he bought it at versus what he could sell it at in today's market. And I'm sure whenever you move out of it in 2 or 3 years, we'll do another podcast on how much money he actually made on it, because interest versus inflation, who cares what the interest is? That inflation on that house is going to be way more than what you purchased it for and put into it.
For sure. And this kind of all loops back to why we're mentioning this as far as strategies to a successful sale, and why we definitely recommend a pre-listing inspection, because this is going to tell you what, major issues you might run into when a buyer has their own inspection and you get repair requests. So maybe this is some things that, if you get a pre-listing inspection, that you can go ahead and see what major issues you need to address before listing.
Yes, because some people want to list as is, which I would never put that in the listing description, because I think that hurts the traffic that could potentially come in the house, because they're going to get turned away. Oh, the seller's just trying to make out, a big bang for their buck without putting any money to the house, not realizing how much money was already put into it. So you get that inspection, you make those repairs, or at least get a good idea of what's to be expected on the next home inspection, or you can also leverage that and give that to your buyer to save money, put that towards closing cost, or what have you. But I think it's good to leverage those pre-listing inspections. Go ahead, knock out the repairs you're willing to do. That way there's no hold up whenever it comes time to inspections and closing. Right.
And then to add into the as is condition, or when you sell as is, that's not always a good choice, especially if you get a repair request where, the repairs that they're asking for might only amount up to a couple $100. In my opinion, that's not worth going back out of contract to then relist, because that couple $100 you're gonna see that couple $100 when you go to relist, because you're gonna have to start the whole contract process over again.
And then buyers look at that as the home sitting on the market for that long. They don't realize that it could have went in and out of contract 1 or 2 times, for it to sit that way, and really it only had the availability on the market for a total of 5 days. But they're like, oh my goodness, it's been on the market for 60 days because it's been in and out of contract. So you really need to talk with your realtor and understand, and have them ask the listing agent why this property's been sitting on the market so long, and then they could tell you, hey, it's been in and out of under contract. It's not the home's fault, because that's happened in many cases.
Right, and this kind of leads us into the CMA portion, which we'll go into the CMA portion in a second. But when you're doing the CMA, we're definitely going to have to come look at the property itself to see the condition. With that, we're going to ask you what repairs you might want to make before you list, because that might help not only the value of your home, but the ease of sale, which is the whole point of the topic. Is ease of sale, or strategies to a successful sale. And there might be a few repairs that you could make, here's and there's, that will help that sale follow through a lot quicker. but then we dive into the CMA, which like I said, if we're going to do a successful CMA, at some point we're going to have to come in to your home, and that's when we're going to hey, maybe these repairs should be done, and that's really up to your discretion. But Jay, what are the parts of the CMA? What should a buyer or seller think about when they're looking at these CMAs?
So with the CMAs, obviously if you have an agent that is not printing you one out and to show you where they're getting these facts from, that's a red flag. But you want to interview a few different realtors, I think, just to get a good average on the price that they're recommending, as well as establishing a good communication, because communication is key, and you want to see who's going to be responsive. You want to see who's going to be whatever the hell that word is. I can't say it.
Communicative.
You figured it out. But no, yeah, we want to figure out who's communicative. And, I think that's key to a good real estate transaction.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You want to have a good connection and good communication with your realtor, and with the CMAs as well, which is going to determine your list price. It sounds great if you have one realtor telling you it's worth $350, but you have another or 4 others telling you it's worth $300.
And with our days on market, I pride myself in mine, and I turn down listings if they're not going to list it what I recommend, and like you might had mentioned earlier, if they want to list at a certain price, if you're not willing to come down in a week or two, let's go ahead and float that to someone else, because it's not going to sell. I'm only giving you the price for me to make money. I don't want to work for free. So if I'm going to tell you that your home is worth so much, that means I make less money too. So it's not to my benefit for your home to sell for less.
And we're pretty confident in our CMAs, and,
Yes.
and that's why we do kind of take a stand on that, which, me, myself, as a realtor, I am willing to list a little bit above, as I'm sure Jay is, as long as we have that agreement that if, we're under, or listed for over a week or two, as long as you're willing to drop that price to what it should be, we're fine with listing at what you want. And, ultimately it is your decision as a seller, and that's why you get to choose your realtor, is you get to list at what you want, but that doesn't mean you get to sell it at what you want. And, that's an important part of finding a good realtor that's going to be honest with you.
And our comps come from appraised value, so
Yeah.
we don't have access
The
to their
comps don't
appraisals,
come from
but
nowhere.
we input those, and that's why it's good to use a realtor, is because we can get the most accurate information. But
Right.
our comps that we're using is the appraised value and sold prices of these homes. So don't get it twisted, and understand that we're giving you the comparable property value.
Right.
It's not just some number we're pulling out of our ass.
And another thing, like, let's say me and Jay quote you at 300, and that's what we think it's worth, but then you have another agent that's like, oh, I can get you 350.
Yeah,
That's fine.
list it. List it and let it sit.
But ultimately, even if it doesn't sit, let's say someone does come in and offer that 350.
We've had that happen.
Maybe they do, but
We'll bite our own tongue.
really the appraisal is going to set that price, and if you agree to that 350, but the appraisal comes in at 300, guess what? You
I
only
will
get
say,
that 300.
sorry to interrupt, I've been in it 8 years. Like I said, we pride ourselves on our CMAs. I've had one house that I've turned down that have sold what they wanted to sell for, and you sold that house, but you had the buyer. Obviously I told you, they might have called you, and I was like, hey, don't list it at that, which maybe shame on me, but one out of the, I sell 50 houses a year. That's quite a bit in 8 years. I've had one that has sold over what I quoted them at.
Which at the time, as a new agent, I need almost every listing I can get. Which,
Right.
I did give them that suggested price. I was like, hey,
Well, you
we're
had
a
the
little
buyer.
high. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about. But it- yeah. Okay, I was thinking about another deal, but yeah, it ended up appraising out and everything was good. But that is something to think about.
It is.
You don't want to list over not only for the reason of it sitting, but also it could appraise low and you're out of it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Time is money.
I guess we're gonna move on to what are some other questions you might want to ask your realtor.
Commission. So a lot of people think that that's a set price. No, that's negotiable. And for me, I don't know what other agents are going to charge, but I'm gonna go ahead and write 10% on that listing contract. I'm gonna slash that. I'm gonna put about 6 or 9 on there, and let you know what you think, and let you feel like you're getting a good deal.
Right. And we can negotiate that commission rate, as Jay said, and typically as far as me lowering my commission rate, it comes from investors and repeat clients, people that I know that use me.
It's good to have a good sphere.
Who recommend me. So I'm going to give them a discount because they're doing business with me, more than once a year. And that's important to me. And, on commission, just because it's a lower price doesn't mean you're getting a better product. And I think that's where me and Jay pride ourselves. We're not asking for more than, every other realtor.
We're not going to ask them to come work for free at their job, are we?
Right, and we're providing
We're going to pay for it.
We're providing a great service, so we ask for what we're worth.
Yep.
We ask for what we're worth, and and that's what we do with our CMAs as well. We tell you what your house is worth, we tell you what we're worth, and it's very clear and cut. And if you're not willing to agree to that, that's fine. There's plenty of realtors out there, but I think you're really missing out on some top level realtors, whether it's me, Jalen, or Ethan. We're going to provide a great service at a good price.
And what is something that you would so if someone would say, how are you going to get that outreach on my listing? So obviously us at Cedar Hills, we're going to reach about 20 to 30,000 people in the first week, with our presence.
Which I can speak to us. I don't know about other realtor companies, but we're going to hit not only HCAR, which is Hardin County's MLS group, which
it's the heart of Kentucky, not Hardin County.
Or heart of Kentucky, but
it's the heart of Kentucky, not just Hardin County. Son.
With that, it's hitting Hardin County, but it's also hitting 3 other MLS boards. So just with that one MLS board, HCAR, you're hitting 4. But on top of that, here at Cedar Hill, you're also going to hit GLAR, which is Louisville's MLS.
Yeah, we hit about 5 or 6 total MLS boards,
right,
as well as all the syndicated websites as
right.
well.
And once it hits those MLS boards, you're going to see that pop up on the syndicated MLS boards, being Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com. And then on top of that, we're going to share you to all our social medias, which as far as Cedar Hill social medias, I think we have one of the top followings in the area. We've
grown quickly.
We have over 2,000 or 3,000 followers on Facebook. But on top of that, us as as your realtor are going to share it to like 10 to 15 different Facebook groups. And that's where Jalen kind of came up with that 20,000 people mark. That are going to see your property in 24 hours.
Not to toot my own horn, but I feel like when we started posting those, our office started going off the chain. And like I said, I don't want to mention too much of our secrets on here because we need to have something to
have an edge
provide.
Somehow.
Yeah, we got to have an edge. But I think actually in a few weeks also we're going to be going over an episode on how to get started. So we're going to be going over how to get started as a realtor, how to get started in investing, as well as property managing. So we'll get a little insider information, but we try to tune back a little bit. Whatever you do here, try it out. But also, you got to learn your own ways to get above the competition.
Hey, we're giving them great info, but we're not giving them all the secrets. And
that's
that's important to us.
We got to tune back sometimes.
Yeah, we got to tune back and keep some of that stuff for ourselves. But more than that, past the commission, something to consider is the photos that the realtor takes. And here at Cedar Hill, we're going to be taking high quality photos, not only with the cameras that we have, but the drone that we have. And that drone is great for land listings, great for houses with land, because we can really get a different perspective that you can't get.
Yeah, humans can't get on their level. Do I got a jetpack? I don't think I do.
You got an 80-foot ladder?
No, I ain't getting on it.
I'm not getting on it. But yeah, that drone, it really helps us, because we can take full photos of the land, which is definitely beneficial when you're marketing property.
I did balance that thing pretty good on my head. Was that impressive or not?
That was pretty cool. You should walk around like that.
Oh, no, I would not try that. Sorry to interrupt, though.
But, really the important thing is how do we get your home sold quickly? And, point A is marketing, how we market that property, and photos is a big part of that. Another part of that is staging it. And, Jay, can you go in a little bit more detail on staging?
So obviously staging is important, I think. But obviously I sell a lot of investment properties, so they're going to be blank slates. So obviously we're going to want to stage the property a little bit. So homes that sellers might be living in, I don't think they're going to appreciate us staging their home, although it might need it, and I will tell the seller, like, hey, I need to come in and stage this property. And they're like, why? And I'm like, well, these colors might not coordinate the best. This room might not show the best, or the property itself might not show the best without my professional touches on the property. So I'm going to go ahead and tell them what they might not want to hear and let them know I have some other professional services that might help get this home sold.
Yeah, and sometimes we do have to tell them what they don't want to hear, but that's why we're real estate professionals. We sell homes for a living. We see units day in and day out. We see what works, what doesn't work. And, when your realtor, especially if they're a good one, gives you advice, they're not meaning to hurt your feelings, but they mean it. And they just want the best interest for yourself in mind. So, they're not trying to hurt your feelings or anything, but, especially when a house is vacant, like you said, investor properties, when a house is vacant, you know, a lot of these buyers can't really picture what it would look like if they lived in that property. And so that's where staging comes into play, because it does add some character to the home. You know, just last week I showed a house that was completely vacant, no staging. You know, and my buyer was like, I just can't picture my stuff in here. And, you know,
1 second.
yeah,
let me take care of you.
Give me a few hours. But no, yeah, it's definitely important to stage your house, especially here at Cedar Hill. We have all, you know, just behind the camera, we got all our staging equipment. I mean, big room. It's full of staging equipment, and we're definitely willing to come out there and stage your house for you if you want to list with us. That's definitely important.
Obviously the staging is important, but I think it's important for sellers to know who is coming in and out of their home. So obviously the next thing would be scheduling showings and how easy is their home to access. So obviously I'm kind of partial. We have these new lock boxes, which we talked about last week in the technology takeover, that are Bluetooth accessible. They read their face. They can open in live time, tell you who's in your house, how long they're in it. Obviously, I love that for my sellers to give them a little peace of mind. But I'm a little old school, and I like those other lock boxes that are just, you know, 3 or 4 pin code, and let's type those in. You know, especially for my investment properties where contractors and, you know, everyone's going in and out consistently. I don't want to have to, you know, take time out of my day to send one-day codes to each individual contractor. So
yeah, to me as an agent, personally, I would prefer the old school, you know, 4-digit combination
less room for error,
a 3-digit combination. Really easy to get in and whatnot. But, you know, when I'm talking to a seller, I definitely recommend if they'd like to go ahead and set up one of those newer lock boxes that have, you know, a code that can be changed, you know, at any second, and you know, requires facial recognition or Bluetooth. You know, those are very beneficial and more secure for sure. But yeah, there's different ways to access a property, and that's something you should talk with your realtor about. But, you know, on to the accessing a property, you got to think about what timelines you have as a seller to allow people in your property. The best case scenario is 24/7 or as close to it. That way, you got some buyers that can only see the property in the morning because they work night shift. But then you got some people who work regular day shift and can only see it in the afternoon.
I think that's also what, you know, our next topic, virtual tours and FaceTime showings. I think that's become a big thing for those people that are, you know, work those third shift, or especially in our area where we have 3 or 4 factories coming in. We need those FaceTime and virtual showings, and people out of town coming in that don't have access to look at these homes, which obviously you want to set foot on it to see every discretion of the property. But really, I think it's important that we're offering these new tools to service our clients the best we can.
Right, which we dove into our episode 6 technology takeover, a little bit of these subjects. But yeah, for sure. You know, I've sold a few homes just off FaceTime, and, you know, most times for me, it's been military clients who are moving from base to base, and, you know, they can't be here for the showing because they're out in Arizona, but they definitely need to see the property because they need to have one ready for them when they move all their stuff here. And so that's definitely an important part to think about when you're choosing a realtor, is whether or not they can provide the FaceTime showings and the virtual showings.
And then once you nail down that realtor, what's the next step? And I think we should wait and kind of go over that after our intermission. But before we dive into the intermission, would you give us thanks to our sponsors?
Yeah, I want to give a big thanks to our title sponsors today. Thanks to Collier Title, Collier Title Company. If you need deed prep, title work, closings, and more, they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville. And you can call them at 270-763-6589 for their Brandenburg and E-Town office. And then I want to give a big shout out to Supreme Lending, Chad Gooden and Garrett Greenwell. They're 2 great lenders over there. And if you have any lending questions or any questions over FHA loans, VA loans, conventional loans, and much more, they are located off of North Mulberry Street in E-Town, or give them a call at the numbers on screen. And then I want to give a big thanks to this week's sponsor and this month's sponsor, Taylor Inspection Services. And they offer residential, commercial, termite, and chimney inspections, as well as mold sampling and more. And you can give them a call at 270-723-6530 or visit them online at taylorinspectionservicesllc.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Property Panel Podcast. Thank you for sticking with us through that brief intermission. As you can tell, we had a little wardrobe change during that, but we're still here to bring you the latest and greatest information. And we were going over the strategies to a successful sale. So could you recap that for us? What we were talking about?
Before that break, we were going over all the things you need to nail down a realtor, one being the CMA. So once you come to a good list price, you know that you're going to have some good pictures and a good marketing plan. It's time to list that baby and get it on the market. But yeah, once you get it on the market, Jay, what's the next step, or what are we looking for?
So we're going to obviously come to an agreement on that list price with the sellers. And then we're going to go into getting the drone photography, the professional pictures, and we got 24 hours actually to put that on an MLS after we get that signed, executed contract to list it.
Yeah, and one thing too to think about is where it's going to be posted, which here at Cedar Hill we're going to be posting on HCAR and Galar, which is going to hit all those syndicated MLSs like Zillow, Trulia, and Realtor.com. But as well as our social medias, we're going to post it on Facebook and share it to 10 to 15 different Facebook groups. So
we get a lot of outreach. I think we're reaching about 15 to 20,000 views on just social media, and that doesn't even include the MLS and the syndicated websites that also publish.
Right, and that's within the first 24 hours. But with that, it's always good to list, and hopefully your realtor has a plan to go ahead and get open houses scheduled, just because that sets a urgency for a lot of the buyers. Which there's two types of open houses you could do. There's the agent open house, which I recommend because all these real estate agents hopefully are going to have more than one client, so that's going to help it get marketed to the people who are representing these buyers. And then I would suggest doing just a regular open house as well.
Yeah, we basically, like you said, we want to go ahead and list the property and then go ahead and schedule that open house to create that urgency for them buyers to get in for that private tour. But also those agent open houses, you might want to go ahead, if it isn't sold within the first week or so, list that on a Tuesday or post it on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and have agents come out to give you a professional opinion of how the property is viewed, if the price is right, and if it's staged correctly.
Yeah, pay attention to that feedback when you do get showings or you do have that open house, because it will tell you a lot about the property. Whether it's the price is too high or maybe it's the location. You'll get some details on what's holding some people back from purchasing the home, and maybe you can correct for that.
And like you said, hopefully you don't have it listed long enough to reach those open houses. Obviously, if you're listing at or below market value, I think you're going to get more traction. And then of course driving up offers, getting them possibly a multiple offer situation too.
Yeah, and which that point after you've listed it, maybe even had an open house, you're going to have offers on the table. So really now it's time to negotiate that contract. And there's a few key points in that contract to pay attention to. Jay, do you want to go over a few of these key points?
Yeah, obviously as soon as we get in the contract, we're going to fulfill our fiduciary duties, and we're going to send that right over in an email form to the seller. And then I'm going to call them up immediately and go over them key points with them in case they haven't been able to look at it in person. And off page one, we're going to go right off rip, and it's going to put the purchase price, the earnest money deposit, as well as the type of financing that's going to be secured on the house. And then in page two, you're going to go over the closing costs that the buyer is going to request, if any, as well as the closing timeline. So if it's going to be a 30 or 45-day closing, you'll see that right there on page two. And then when you get into page three, they're going to be going over if the property is going to have an appraisal, which 9 times out of 10 a property is going to, even on those in-house appraisals. They're really just evaluations, but it's still a form of appraisal to make sure that property value meets the loan amount that then banks are going to be given to you. And then when you move on to the next page, you're going to be going over the inspections. How long of a inspection timeline do they have? We usually write in about 5 days to get those inspections done. And then you got about a 2 or 3 day turnaround to get repair requests negotiated. And then you're going to start going into page 5, and you're going to see when they want the keys. So obviously we're going to shoot for keys to be, simultaneous at closing, but there are times where, it's detrimental for the buyer to have pre-possession or post-possession for the sellers in certain situations. And then finally on page 6, you're going to run into the other provisions, which is where you'll see the contingencies. If they got a contingency on a home that they need to sell before they buy yours, if they got any type of, extra things that they want to write in that contract, that's typically where it goes. Or if there's going to be an addendum to the contract, that's where you're going to write, see this addendum. And then obviously on page 7, you're going to have a response timeline of, 24 hours, I think, is pretty standard, but in those multiple offer situations, you might want to put a quicker timeline just to create that urgency for those buyers to respond quickly.
Right, and to kind of dive into that repair request, kind of why we recommend that pre-listing inspection.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're going to get items on that repair request that you may or may not want to complete, and that's why we recommend that pre-listing inspection, so you know what to expect, what might pop up on that repair request. But with all these key points, that's where you can kind of leverage,
Mm-hmm.
your side as the seller. If they're asking for closing cost, you may ask for more on the purchase price because you're going to be basically coming out of that money either way.
Right.
So yeah, definitely talk to your realtor about that when you're negotiating. And obviously try to get the best deal for yourself and for your seller.
Mm-hmm. And then once you secure that contract, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
which we mentioned, we got those inspections periods. So the first week after you go under contract, it's kind of like a waiting game. Make sure that them home inspections and those termite inspections come back clear and they're not going to ask for any repairs. And then sometimes if they do come back with a repair request for my sellers, I'll be like, hey, let's wait till the appraisal come back. Make sure that that's going to be good at value, that there's no repairs, because sometimes if there are any repairs on the appraisal, it's going to knock out a lot of those key
Right.
repairs that were shown on the repair request.
And that the appraisal repairs, those are necessary.
Mhm.
Those
Yeah,
need to be
Have
completed.
to.
Whereas the repair request coming from the buyer, that's negotiable. But yeah, that's a good tip. If you can wait till your appraisal's back, because you'd hate to agree to $5,000 worth of repairs and then also your appraisal come in 5,000 short,
Mhm.
and then you're out of all that money.
Or then if it comes in 5,000 above, you can be like, hey, your home appraises for more than what we're selling it for. I mean, it's basically once those inspections come back and the appraisal comes back, your contract's renegotiable, 2 or 3 times during that actual initial contract period.
Right, and then after the appraisal and inspection, as long as everybody comes to terms on the repair request, the next few steps again is a waiting game.
Mhm.
Really, we're waiting on title to clear the title, which isn't too much of a hassle.
Right, and they're doing it all under the radar. While
Right.
all these key points are going down, the title company's making sure that the seller's agents and the buyer's agents' information is taken care of. The payoffs are taken care of. Those title searches are done. The deed prep. They're have a tremendous amount of work all going behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize until the last 3
Right.
days where they see that clear to close.
Yeah, they really make it seem easy
Mhm.
because they just end up emailing you. Oh, it's clear.
Yeah, yeah,
you
we're
don't
like,
see all
"Yes."
you don't see all the in betweens of that, but definitely crucial to the deal. And then another thing you're going to be waiting on is the buyer's final lending and underwriting.
Yep. Don't go and get a new car.
Yeah.
Don't quit your job.
And
I mean,
buyers, watch
the day
out.
after you close, do whatever you want. But yeah,
Yeah.
let's not mess with this loan process.
Don't refinance. Don't open a new line of credit. But yeah, so it'll go through final underwriting, basically making sure everything that the buyer has said as far as financing is still true and still, they're able to finance that itself.
Mhm.
But once we get underwriting complete, what's the next step, Jalen?
So once you get that final clear to close, which is music to everyone's ears, you're gonna schedule that final walkthrough, which I typically like to do within 3 to 1 days of closing, just to make sure that all those repairs were completed. Make sure the home is in just as good a shape, if not better than it was, but whenever you've seen it during the first few showings. And then obviously you're gonna get to the closing if everything checks out and sign your life away.
And hopefully get keys.
And hopefully get keys. Yeah, to go ahead and negotiate those for simultaneous on the buyer's behalf.
Yeah.
And then also for the sellers, you don't want to have someone moving in early, and buyers, you don't want the sellers staying late. So let's go ahead and negotiate that and prepare. I know a lot of agents might miscommunicate those deadlines, and I know that a few agents have had issues where the seller's not ready to move out when it's time to close. They're like, oh, I thought we had 30 days after. Like, no, when you get your
No.
money is when the people get their keys. Do you want to
Right.
It don't
Yeah.
make much sense to me, but we're through it all the time, so we got to make sure that our clients are aware of every situation.
Right. Yeah. You pretty much have to be ready or already moved out, on
Mhm.
closing day. Or you might run into some issues.
And we'll help if you need it.
but-
Don't think we'll leave you stranded. We're not saying just get out. We'll try and make ends meet. If it's a struggle for you to get out by closing, we'll arrange something. And that's
Right.
why there are those outcomes in the contract to be negotiated. Some
Right.
people will agree to that. It's just something that I would kind of steer away from on the buyers and sellers side. It could cause more issues than need to arise.
And in between that clear to close and closing day, you should get what's called a CD or an Alta statement,
Mhm.
and that's going to break down where all the funds are going, where all
Yep.
the money's going. So, ask your realtor to kind of break that down with you. That way you make sure everything's good to go. You're getting the money you should. You're not paying any extra fees that you shouldn't be. But review those CDs and Altas. If that's all good to go, we're at the closing table. We're getting keys. But I guess we should dive into some of the contracts the sellers should expect.
Yeah, let's go ahead and look at a few of the contracts that you might see.
So we're going to move on to the computer and go over some of these contracts.
So obviously these are the contracts you would see from contract to close as a listing agent. So obviously the first one you're going to look at, excuse me, is the exclusive right to sell. So this is going to basically be your listing contract. You're going to have the property address right here, as well as the acreage and the deed book and page number and the county that it's recorded at, as well as the listing date and expiration time. So that's typically, I'll do a 3-month. I know a lot of agents like to do 6 months, but I'm pretty confident we can get the home sold quickly if we take my professional advice. So everyone's happy, and then also it's not like I'm doing the sellers an injustice. And then right here, we're going to have the appliances and stuff that are going to be staying with the home. And then if you have like a water softener, security system, propane tank, anything like that you might want to stay, we'll check that right there. And then you got your brokerage fee, which is the commission, and that commission is split between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent evenly. And it's no set price, so it does depend on agent per agent. I was taught, in my real estate school to do 10%, slash it to about 6 or 9, and act like we're doing them giving them a little deal. So, that's just a little trick to the trade that we might try sometimes to make sellers feel like they're getting a better deal. And then also right here, something that I don't think sellers look at is the possible days after the listing is expired that you could still potentially be reimbursed to your commission. So if you were to work with someone within the listing contract time, but they did not buy, I have 90 days, as long as I have proof and documentation that I worked with them on this house, that I can secure my commission if they do end up writing on it. So that's something to protect us as realtors, just because no one wants to work for free, and if we're doing our due diligence, sometimes a contract can take that long.
Right, and if you're doing the 90 days or the 3 months, and you put all that work in to get leads to market the property, and then maybe one of the buyers that you showed the property to comes back later, that's really what that's for.
You have new buyers all the time, and then I've had many buyers where they'll come to me 3 months after it's listed and send me a picture way down the log on my Facebook and be like, "Is this house still available?" I'm like, "Oh my goodness, how did you find that?" And it's usually a no, but
right.
Then it allows me to find them what they are looking for. But as we move down, this is where you're allowing us to list the property on the internet, do automated visual tours, and allow blogging and the address to be posted. If you want it to be a short sale, which is typically only if it's a dire need to sell at a low price. Sometimes below what your mortgage is worth, we can work something out, but it is a lengthy process. And then you're going to allow us to post a sign on the property as well as a lockbox, and that you are going to complete the seller's disclosure and potentially the lead-based paint disclosure if your home was built before 1978, which we will be going over after these documents. And any other provisions, if there's special showing instructions, you would put those right there. And, that gives the peace of mind to the sellers, I feel like.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Another thing, too, I think is important is that seller's disclosure. That's not only good for you as a seller, that way basically all these questions, as well as a realtor when they're showing it, but it's a peace of mind for the buyer as well.
Yeah, and these seller's disclosure basically go over everything that the seller knows has been updated or wrong with the house since they've owned it. So they'd obviously put the year purchased, if they've owned it as an individual or a company, if they've ever had it as a rental. So you would pretty much get all your property information just off this piece of paper. But obviously I would still recommend a home inspection, to make sure that these things are truthful and that they're not missing anything that are potential problems that, they haven't noticed quite yet. And then obviously, like I said, it breaks down everything, even goes over if you've smoked meth in the property, which hopefully you haven't. And we don't want to sell one if you have. I'm not going to lie to you. Let's get some fumigators out there. But then here's the lead-based paint disclosure. A lot of people are like, what is this? So lead-based paint is not allowed anymore. And really, they go in and check by either picking some paint off the wall, or they'll take a torch to it and wait for it to melt. And once they get to the melting paint, they have discovered lead-based paint. But, obviously we got to give a pamphlet if the home was built before 1978, giving them the risk to lead-based paint. And then we have them fill out this form if that is the case on that property.
What are the remedies for lead-based paint if you do have it?
Paint over it.
Paint over it.
So
there's really only two options.
Don't let it scare you. I know some people are like, oh, I don't want one if it's got that disclosure. I'm like, well, they just have to disclose it if the house was built. It's not the house's fault.
Right.
But that's the disclosures you have to fill out. And then obviously you'll get this consumer guide to agency, which breaks down the different possible types of agency relationships that could potentially happen in the transaction. And then once you actually get a contract, you would go over the agency disclosure. And this would tell you the exact agency relationship that is happening, whether it's two agents from the same brokerage or two agents from two different brokerages. We all have to withhold our fiduciary duties and make sure our clients, are taken care of with the best and utmost honesty and integrity.
Yeah, and that's what all these documents are for. They're to protect the sellers. It's to protect the agents. Make sure everything's in writing and it's very clear. But yeah, they're definitely important. And those are the main contracts before you get into the deal. And then obviously you got the sales contract when you get an offer. You got the repair request contracts when those come up.
Mm-hmm. Which we will show whenever we got John Taylor coming on in a few weeks, and he's going to be breaking down what is a home inspection, and we're going to be going over a few repair requests you might see. As you've seen in the earlier video, we did break down one of John's home inspections over Ethan's property. Thank you, Ethan, for that. But he actually has a neat little tool on there where you can actually create a repair request straight from that home inspection report. So that's something neat to have. I still personally do it the old school way, but that is a neat little thing that he offers. And he offers, which I don't think we mentioned, is that 90-day buyback guarantee. So if you find anything within 90 days that didn't turn up on the inspection, like I said, he takes pride in his work. So he goes over every little bit, and he has the insurance in place to buy back that home at value.
Yeah, he does a great job. He's really thorough, and I'm looking forward to having him on the pod and learning some things from him and all the parts of his process, because I'm sure there's stuff that we don't know, and because there's a lot to it, and he does a great job. So definitely looking forward to that. So tune in for that. I don't know if that's later on this month.
Yeah, I think it's towards middle March, somewhere around
March.
there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think March like 15th or something. We're gonna have him on the show.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of these contracts are very important, and I'm glad we got to go over them, and I'm sure we will continue to go over them in future episodes.
Oh, yeah. And if you want to hardcore dive into the strategies to a successful sale and see if me and Josh could potentially be the agent for you, don't hesitate to reach out and give us a call at one of the numbers below. And if you want both of us, like I said, we'll work for the price of one. You can get two people working for the price of one. We don't care to help each other out and to give the best service to our clients. So feel free to give us a call, and as well as Ethan, too. He does a great job. Like I said, sometimes we might forget to mention him, but he's doing a huge job behind the scenes, and we appreciate him coming on. I hope you guys will look forward to what else we have to produce in the future on this podcast. And I think next week we're going to be exploring the different types of real estate. So we'll be going over the different types of zoning, the different types of real estate, difference in personal property and real property. It's going to be a neat episode that I think a lot of people should tune into. Very valuable knowledge.
For sure. I guess before we do that, we're going to be closing out here shortly. Do you have anything else you want to say before we get into our sponsors?
I can't. I think that we're giving out some good information. I'm very pleased, and I thank everyone for tuning in. And like we mentioned at the beginning, if you want to do us a solid, totally for free, go ahead, hit that like button, hit the share button, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, all social media.
Totally free.
Any platform, basically, just search Property Panel Podcast, and we should pop up.
Yep. So let's move on to our title sponsors for the day. And I want to give a big thanks to Collier Title. They do deed prep, title work, closings, and more. And they're located in Brandenburg, E-Town, and Louisville. And you can call them at 270-763-6589. And then I want to give a big shout out to Supreme Lending, Chad Gooden and Garrett Greenwell. They're two great lenders over there. And they can help you with FHA loans, VA loans, conventional loans, and much more. And they're located off of North Mulberry Street in E-Town. And then for this week's sponsor and the sponsor for the month, I want to thank Taylor Inspection Services. If you need residential, commercial, termite, and chimney inspections, as well as mold sampling and more, you can give them a call at 270-723-6530 or visit them online at taylorinspectionservicesllc.com.